Hey George, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How you been?
I've been good.
That's good. You can take some time, take a vacation this summer?
I've got a couple little things like I'm gonna be in Maine. Uh,
Nice hat.
yeah. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna be celebrating all summer long,
Yeah,
basically.
there you go. So you said you're going to be in California?
No, Maine. I'm gonna be in. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Nothing too ambitious. Um, I feel like I've got. Oh, I've got a friend in Nantucket that's usually has us out every summer for 3, 4 days. So
Oh, that's
kind of
nice.
like a college reunion sort of thing. So I'll do that as well.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then Karen and I have been flirting with the idea of, we've both been like drooling over these like Nova Scotia like hiking Instagram reels that keep like flooding our feeds. And so we were thinking maybe we'll try to find some time to do that this summer. So
Yeah, that would be nice. That is a long haul.
yeah, it takes a long time to get there, but we'll see.
It's beautiful. People I've talked to in PEI on the northern end supposed to
Yeah,
be just dramatic
yeah,
and quiet.
yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much it. How about you? Are you going to be? Let's see.
Uh,
Are you in
Cape
California
Cod
now,
this
or you just got back?
I'm at what's that?
Are you in California now, or
Oh
you
no, no,
got?
California was the beginning was in May.
Oh, okay, got it.
And then, no, I'm in Cape Cod right now, and then I'm coming back for a week in August because my boys are both going to be here in August. So we're going to have a whole family thing, which will be nice.
Nice.
And that's it for trips. I don't think I have anything else planned after
Yeah.
that.
Do you
It's
have a
just
place
fun.
there, or do you rent?
No, we Airbnb it.
Yeah,
Too expensive. I
it's crazy. Yeah,
couldn't justify it.
right. Yeah,
And the thing is, if you buy a second home, that becomes where you travel a lot.
right. Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
you end up maintaining them. What are you going to do with the Cape this weekend? Paint the living room.
right, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's hard to like not have somebody there to have eyes on it at all times. And
That's right. You can get property managers and you can rent them. I mean, it can be done. It's more work than I'm willing to put into it.
yeah, yeah. How's it going, Jim? That's easy.
You're on mute, Jim.
I'm doing well, but not as well as you, AJ.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm still riding that high from week.
What a great series. I mean, this Knicks team is just amazing. So
It
is
was
that.
all it was all the series. All of
Yes.
once they came back against Atlanta, they were
Yeah.
unreal.
You
I,
know,
I I never thought I'd see the day where like a New York team would capture the hearts of like the whole entire country. It just seems like
Mm.
it's
such an
usually the opposite,
unlikely
isn't
thing.
it?
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of speaks to something appealing about this.
I think it's the underdog thing. I don't think
Yeah,
people expected New York to be nearly as strong as they turned out to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just it's like there was always this like as a fan who follows it closely, it's like I could see the pieces, and it just was not never quite like fitting together the way, but like you had a sense that like if we could ever get this to like totally kind of work and congeal and have these pieces fit together, this could be a really good team. And it just did not happen until it had to happen, and then it's just like it all sort of came together. Everybody kind of understood their role and yeah, played well together. Yeah. It's a good
Well,
story.
and they had a superstar. I mean, Brunson is just incredible.
Yes, yes. I'm going to be at the parade on Thursday. I'm going to go tomorrow night, and
Nice.
it's going to be. I don't know how close I'm going to get. It's like I think it's going to be an insane crowd. But yeah,
Yes, it is.
my son's
What
coming up.
what part of town? What part of town is that?
It basically starts in Battery Park, and then it goes up Broadway to and ends at City Hall. So if you know the city, it's like it's not a
That's
super
not very
long.
long, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not. Uh, but yeah, it's basically southern tip, just
Yeah, it's all over
up
Manhattan.
Broadway. Yeah. So that's part of the thing. It's like there's not a lot of geography to like spread however many million people are going to come watch. So I don't know what to expect, but it'll be fun. My son is like we're both huge fans, and we were sort of flirting with the idea of getting together for one of the watch parties, and it just they won the thing so quickly. We couldn't make it happen. So he's coming up for the parade. It'll be nice to see him.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
That will be awesome.
Cool. Yeah. All right. I don't know if anybody else. Let's see. Molly said she was out today. I didn't hear from Laura, but she might be out as well.
I just got off the lake. We were kayaking.
Nice.
It's like, shit, wait a minute, I got a meeting I gotta go to.
I got responsibilities.
Yeah, I gotta get the boats in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Nice. That
Must have been
sounds-
pretty nice out there this evening.
yeah, it was. There's a tree, there's a big pine tree near the boat launch, and there's almost always an eagle there, just sort of being wise.
nice.
I heard the Eagles are nesting there this year again.
Oh yeah, they are.
You've seen them
Well, I've seen them, yeah.
this year. You've seen them this year.
I
So
haven't
they're
seen
there.
the nest. I've seen two. There was one day we saw three, so
Yeah,
they're
they're
almost,
there.
they're like Canadian geese,
Not yet. Another 10 years, maybe.
maybe.
All right. Well, why don't I call us to order here at 6:35? Um,
No, I'm not gonna. Not tonight.
so a
Doing
couple
tomorrow.
things. I had thought we might do some final line to line transfer. So I reached out to Gail, and of course it made sense that like she said there are still some bills that um are going to come in these last 2 weeks of June. So she recommended that we hold off. So I think probably in at some point in July we'll finish that up. and do one final round of those
And
transfers.
that's typical AJ, because she
Yeah.
usually doesn't have all the bills in anyways.
Yeah, no, it made as soon as she said it, it made sense. Let's see what else. Haley mentioned that she had a conflict tonight, so she's not gonna be able to join us, but uh I'll fill her in on anything we discussed. So we might actually have kind of a lighter agenda tonight. So here's what I thought we'd do. We have minutes from the 26th, I think.
Yeah,
Right? And
April
then,
28th, May 7th, and May 26th.
oh, so we have more. Okay.
We have 3.
All right. So
Because you didn't, I was looking at the minutes that
yeah,
Susie sent out. You had not
yeah,
approved
that's right.
any.
I think we held off on that. Okay, so give me those dates one more time.
Let me go back. May 28th, I'm sorry, April 28th, May 7th, and May 26th.
All right. Okay.
So May 28th first.
Yeah. April 20th, right? Yeah. All
I'm
right.
sorry, April 28th. Yeah, I keep doing that. Yes,
All right, let's do those first.
Time flies.
And then
does.
I have a couple school related updates I'll give after we do the minutes, and then I think we can dive into this long range planning tool that George, you've been working hard on. Okay, so let's see.
You're starting a meeting this? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. All right, you never mind. You're starting a meeting, right?
Hey, George, we did see that's AJ showed us that spreadsheet a little bit last week, the forecasting tool.
Oh, good.
Yeah, looked really good.
Yeah, no,
Nice.
I'll tell you all about it when we get to that. I think you're all gonna, I'll tell you all about it, and I'm want to hear feedback, and let's refine it together.
Yeah, I gave them sort of just kind of the preview of like
That's good. That's good. So it won't
we
be
didn't go,
pulled.
we didn't go through it in any detail, so I think we can do that tonight. And I think given that we don't have other big items tonight, that'll be
Good. Yeah, we can make some real progress on it.
yeah. Okay, here we go.
Congratulations, by the way, Jim. I think
Yes.
I think, did I congratulate? Yes, I did. We were together. That's right.
Mhm.
Well, twice is always nice too.
Nothing wrong with that.
But thanks.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
you're going to do a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it and working with you all in a different kind of way.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's good.
I've done it. That reminds me, Brendan sent like a list of like all appointments, and he has both April and you on the FinCom list. So I've got to send him a message to update him. And then that triggered in my mind, like I know I've had conversations with Nettie about there being 2 spots, but
Mhm.
now and then I had a moment where I was like, wait, I hope Nettie has fully absorbed that. But anyway, I sent her a message. I haven't heard back from her yet, but
Yeah,
hopefully-
I emailed her a while ago.
okay, yeah. All right, so here's April 28th. So let's look at this. All right.
So long ago. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
GM.
Okay.
Did not have any corrections.
Yeah. Anybody have any suggestions? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the April 28th minutes as written.
Second,
Overnight aside.
Cashew eye.
Mosier, aye.
Stein eye.
Walton, I.
All right, and we'll go to April 7th.
Yeah, May 7th was the
May 7th.
presentation before the annual town meeting.
Yeah.
God, that was so long ago.
Mm.
You know, when the weather gets warmer, the clock moves faster.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
It just occurs to me, like all of our budget documents that we shared in advance of annual town meeting, do they live in that on that page, or do they get moved over? Does anybody know exactly where those
I
documents?
will look.
Yeah, I think they're on the, I think there's a special page in our for town meetings. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where you find them, Susie.
I see it. So then there's like an archive of all of it. Okay.
If you go to, yeah, because I've seen them. I've gone back and looked for them.
Yeah.
When I do some of our stuff, and there's something under town governance. There's town meeting.
Yeah, there's on the town meeting page, there is our budget report
Uh-huh.
and the budget.
Got it.
So, but we also put up some other things. So I wonder
Yeah.
if they're under FinCom. Let's see, where are we here?
I'm trying to think. We put up the CapEx.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and the school budgets are up there on the FinCom
okay.
page. So I guess if we want to ask for them to be saved in some way, I could ask Gail Fleischacker to figure that out.
When you say saved in some way, what do you mean?
Well, they're on our page under the FY20, um, the warrant guide, our report, expense and revenue, schools and CapEx. But I don't think things stay there. There's nothing from the previous year. And because I'm looking at the FinCom page. So this is a problem in figuring it out, where things sit and how they get saved.
Mm,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. Wouldn't it make sense to have a folder for each year and just have each year's collection of budget documents?
Yeah, I think I should suggest that to her, and it should sit on the FinCom page.
yeah. So
Sound
like
right?
this.
Is that what I should do?
Yeah, I think that does sound right. So it would be like this is what our FinCom page looks like right now.
Mm.
So like, yeah, all of this will live here now until next year, at which time presumably it comes down and gets replaced with FY28 materials. Whereas under town meeting, the only budget documents that get
Right.
maintained here are our report and our budget. I wonder if this is both the expense and revenue.
Right.
So
So we
Looks like
also might
yeah,
ask for those the reports that Laura and I did. Just
yeah,
create a folder for each year that sits on the page and
Yeah.
has everything that was put up.
yeah. I think that makes sense.
that does make
also,
sense.
It's worth noting that the budget it's just the expense budget. They don't even have the revenue. budget.
Revenue.
I would add one thing to that too, Susie, if you're going to talk to Gail.
Yeah.
And that is last year this year when it was time to create the new budget template, I needed the FY25 actual spend. And
Yeah.
you know those documents that Gail started putting up there, the expense reports, all of FY25's disappeared when the new year started.
Hmm.
And so those should also be archived under a
Each
certain year.
Yeah, so maybe on the FinCom page, each year should have a folder
Yep.
for all the documents that got put up. And I had to chase down getting the right version, that special town meeting version of FY26. It wasn't around. It's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Well, just one caveat, one thing the expense reports are under the governance I think wherever they're under, there should be a folder there for those in that folder, not necessarily in the FinCom. don't you think?
Yeah, she does have a way of paying attention to where everything is shared to, so it's put up in multiple pages.
Yes.
So I will talk to her and I will
Okay.
explain what we're looking for. And yeah, I think it can be on two places, but it's like the school committee budgets aren't showing up anywhere other than our page.
I think the simplest solution is the one you suggested, Susie, which is there's a bucket, a folder for each year, and then we can put everything in there. We can put the report, the final budgets, the fiscal updates that you do, the school budgets, the CapEx, like everything for that year can go in there.
You
Okay.
mean like everything that we have in the Google Drive?
Uh-huh.
Mm.
I'm not sure I would put the departmental budgets in there, but because those end up basically
Right.
In the proposal.
that would be
No, I agree.
looking at
I agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah, kind of the main documents, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the capital plan, even though it's not a FinCom document, is even something that could potentially be linked there. So yeah, I think that would be great. All right, let's go back to the minutes.
7th.
So May 7th?
Yeah. Wow, these are really detailed. This is good.
Yeah, I got a little crazy on that one.
Good.
Information section went well and information's out there. People can see it.
All right, this looks great. I don't have any suggestions. Anybody have any?
No.
That's good.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 7th as written.
Second,
Arvanitis, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Stein, I.
Walton, I.
All right, and then we have the 26th, right? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so then our line to line transfer.
I had one comment. I wasn't in the meeting, so, but
Mhm.
I just had one comment, as soon as I save this thing here. At the very bottom, I just want to mention under the list of projects, I'm sorry,
7,
Summer projects?
yeah. One of the things that was missing, AJ, I wanted to just bring up was we were also going to meet with, and maybe it's a subcategory in one of these and I'm not aware of it. Brendan, not Brendan, his brother Ryan, to
right.
talk about our debt service, to
Yes.
get what's currently outstanding, when is it going to come due, or what are the annual payments over how many years, what's the interest, so that we could look at how we're going to prepare for the fire truck.
Yeah.
And possibly a grader if in fact we are requested to purchase a grader next year. I did talk to Dave and Dave said there is no grant for next year. He had mentioned to me, he had told me that if we don't get it this year, we'll apply for the grant again next year, and I talked to him last week and he said, that's not an option. So
So
I
they're
think
not, there's, okay, so there's no funding for next year, for a new round of,
not a new round of grants, that's right, which means that he would have to use as much Chapter 90 money as he's willing to, which he's not sure what that is until he finishes this year's projects. And the rest would have to be funded, we'd have to figure it out.
Mm.
Um, and I did see in your minutes, in these minutes that there was a lot of discussion about the alternatives to buying one, so that's good. That'll probably have to happen. But again, I think it would be good. This is my personal feeling is if we sat down and talked to Ryan
yeah,
and got a handle on where we are in debt service and what can we do. I know I floated one idea and it's just an idea. I don't even know if it'll work or not. But if we were able to take stabilization at some amount, 150,000, pay off some loans and create capacity in the budget for the fire truck loan.
yeah. Yeah, so I think in terms of the minutes, I think what I would suggest is that we tack on
Yeah.
a sentence at the end of C here.
Yeah, I mean, only if you did talk about it. I'm mostly bringing this up just to make sure it happens. That's all.
Let me look.
I mean, I know we've talked about it. I can't recall if it was that meeting or a different one.
Guess we could talk about it today. I'm not.
Yeah, I can put it in the minutes today, and
really
just as a reminder.
Yeah.
All right, let me do
I
that.
mean,
I'll put-
I think the timing of that conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, but it probably needs to happen after we see an updated capital plan, right? Because we want to see what part of what we're asking him to do is tell us what the debt schedule for current projects are, and then mapping the capital, the long range capital plan onto that, what additional projects may need to be funded in which years, and what are his preliminary thoughts about how do we would plan for that and how we might.
The one other thing that might affect the timeline about solving this problem would be letting Dave, if we work out a plan where some funds come from here, some funds come from Chapter 90, he didn't spend them all out from 2025 yet. So, but we need to give him a heads up if we decide to use some money from Chapter 90.
Yeah, I can agree with those things. It's probably not that urgent. Brian did tell us that he would send us a list of what's outstanding now and the payments for each, how much in each of the next 4 or 5 years. I think the only one that stretches beyond 2 or 3 years is the culvert loan. At the very least, it would be good to have that, but I agree. We don't have to jump into this analysis so soon.
All right, I'm gonna make a note to ask Brian about that current schedule because I haven't seen it yet.
Because
I think what I'll do in that email is I'll give him a heads up that we're also thinking of speaking with him, in late summer, potentially to review a new long range capital plan document that's being put together by the capital planning committee, and that we would like to kind of talk through that with him to help sort of project what some of our borrowing costs might be for the next 5-10 years.
sounds good.
All right.
One other thing I saw in here was in the minutes that Susie had sent out was a conversation about funding. I'm trying to find it now. The PFAS loan, and did we actually put PFAS loan in FY27? Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
I can't see where it is in here, but it was my understanding that it turned out that it was buried in another line in the budget.
This is 3B. After the Tigan bond letter came, we looked at what we had and how it shows up in the budget and what some of the possible pieces are. And that letter didn't really explain what they were proposing their billing for and didn't reflect how it moved from quarterly to semi-annually in
Mhm.
terms of it didn't change, the money didn't change. It's like, really? So the upshot of that was Haley was gonna work on clarifying the proposal and the costs.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And I still need to follow up with Ryan about this question of why the FY27 budget
Oh, yeah.
only includes PFAS interest costs, not, and I don't know if that was like an interest only loan or something like that, where we're not actually paying down principal, but I don't,
Yeah.
George, you don't have any knowledge about that, do you?
Could you repeat that again?
So one of the things we were trying to wrap our heads around was that the FY27 budget includes an expense for PFAS, for interest on the PFAS loan, but not a principal payment on that loan.
Oh, that's weird. Hold on.
3F. Can you roll it up to show 3F?
Yeah.
It was my understanding that it was in the WPAT loan line, I thought, or it was in water quality. I thought I'd have to go back to previous minutes because it
Okay.
might have been noted in the minutes, but I
All right.
thought that Gail told one of us, might have been you, Susie, that the principal was actually somewhere else and being paid out of another line. We've
Could
had so
be.
many conversations, it's hard to remember all these
Yeah.
things.
Sounds
And-
right.
Remembering is not our best verb.
We need
No.
some young minds on this committee.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm taking a quick look at the budget. Yeah, and I don't think we had it in the notes. I thought it was water quality, but maybe it was the WPAT loan. Yeah, maybe we just need to get a clarification on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it was in there, and I do recall that it was just we all breathed a
It's
sigh of
sort
relief.
of buried
Yes.
somewhere else. Yeah, you're right. I do remember this now. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
great. Yeah.
Do you think this is a Gail question or a Ryan question?
I think it was Gail. I think because Gail pays the bill, she has to know where to pay it out of.
Okay, so I'll ask her. All right.
But I do see a PFAS principal loan and a PFAS interest loan in the budget. We have both.
Let's see.
What line is that?
Line 208 is the PFAS loan, and line 213 is the PFAS interest portion of that loan. But there's two bands,
Yeah.
and I think one of them's here and the other one is buried somewhere else. And given the size of these, I don't think it's in the WPAT. Yeah, I think it is a question for Gail.
Yeah.
But, reading through these notes, looking at the numbers for this, and obviously the comment that you all made in the previous meeting, this isn't capital, this is operating, and we need to build this into the budget. Another $106,000 in the budget, really?
So 208 is the PFAS loan in the principal section. And 213 is the interest. And the WPAT is under 205 principal. Yeah, we need to have it all identified.
Yeah.
Even it would be good to label it in the budget that way. But
Yes.
there was something about this because I looked and looked. Now I don't. That was a long time ago. May something.
Okay. All right. I'll give Gail a shout and see if she can help us understand this. All right.
Do you want me to take that on, or do you want to do it? How's your time doing?
No, that's fine. I don't mind reaching out to her because I can. She sent me a message about she responded to my question about line-to-line transfer, so I can
Yep.
get back to her. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so wait, I lost the minutes. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, anybody else have anything else on these minutes? All right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended here.
Second,
Arvanitis abstain.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Oh, Stein Eye.
Walt and I.
All right, great. Okay, let's see. Let me share a couple updates and then I'll see if any of you guys have updates from any committees that might be meeting, although I suspect this is a slow time, but so I met with a group of people at the school last week to talk about this question of like all of these different projects that are being discussed that are all connected in some way because they have implications for the school parking lot. And so there was a meeting that Haley pulled together with her, Ann McGill, Caitlin, finance director, Shannon, the superintendent, Nate from the school committee, Matt, this custodian at the elementary school. And I think that was it. Unfortunately, there was a little mix-up, and Michael DiChiara and Frank McGinn showed up at 10 o'clock. We were there at 9 o'clock. So we ended up wrapping up the meeting right as those guys got to the school. So we talked to them for a little bit, but it was a productive meeting. I'll just say that I think the most important development was that I think it was sort of like the first time where that group of people all got together to commit to a process of like actually coordinating all of these different projects. So I think to list them, there's a bunch of problematic areas on the school sidewalk, particularly around that entrance we all use for town meetings and whatnot. And apparently there've been at least a few stumbles there, and there's concern about it being a safety hazard. So there's that. There's the parking lot itself, which not only needs to be repaved, and we've been hearing about this for years, but there's, I think, some design questions about it as well. The bus route right now, it like essentially for various traffic reasons ends up like driving over that island in the middle of the lot like pretty routinely. And so I think there's an interest in, since the lot needs to be repaved, let's actually think about the ideal layout and traffic pattern and whatnot. So there's that. There's an oil tank buried in the center underneath that center island that was having some leaking issues. It looks like that has been, at least for the moment, been resolved, but there may be some contamination that we may be required to dig that thing up at some point.
Nice.
And maybe more importantly, there's an interest in proactively, you know, moving away from oil-based heating at the school and transitioning to a non, you know, fossil fuel based system. So there's that. Um, there's like a water tank, fire mitigation tank that is going to need to be placed, buried somewhere on the school property. And so like all of these things, did I miss anything else, Susie?
Well, then the ground
Oh
heat
yeah.
pumps.
So one of those alternatives that I think folks are interested in is the opportunity to uh, transition to a ground source
Heat pump.
heat pump system, which would basically provide heating and cooling. I'm not an expert, so folks should fill me in, but I think the process is basically involves like digging boreholes, a bunch of them, would be further up the parking lot driveway, having lines essentially connected to the school and feeding the existing air circulating system in the school. And I assume those lines get filled with or utilize groundwater and maybe some antifreeze or something. I'm not sure, but something like that. Um, so so and then another alternative would be just the more conventional like mini splits that could be installed for heating and cooling purposes. So those are all different projects that are at different stages of discussion. And I think there was there was some concern, I think particularly like on school committee's part. I'm sure the principal, I know, from the FinCom, like all of these, like the worst case scenario would be we pursue one of these projects, start spending money, like significant money on them, appropriating money for these things, only to have to change course and do a totally different thing because we decide we want to do one of these other projects, or that this is not a good solution given these other things that we need to do. So I think the positives that came out of this meeting is there's now like a group that is going that has been sort of briefed on this, that is going to be in communication anytime there's like an important decision point,
Thank you.
along to discuss along the way. And I think importantly, that we got the school people in particular to articulate the sort of most desirable outcome so that we can kind of work backwards from there and see like let's see if we can accomplish this. And then, if for some reason that's not going to work, then we can look at sort of alternative paths. So it was the consensus view on the part of superintendent, principal, Nate from the school committee, is that exploring this ground source heat pump system would be the most desirable outcome, and then dealing with these other things like taking out the oil tank, maybe putting the water tank in its place, repaving the parking lot. All of that can happen as in coordination with that project. Okay, so that's the most desirable thing. The good news is that a proposal has been submitted that Michael DeKiera's Energy ECAC group, I think, has sort of overseen and has been submitted. He's quite confident that we're going to win that grant. It will provide $150,000 to essentially do like a feasibility design study process over the next year, basically. And if it's determined that we are a good candidate for that system, they will essentially write one of the deliverables will be an application for a construction grant, which would be more around like I think $1 million ask at that point. And so the thought is like, let's not go ahead now and spend money to repave the parking lot while we're in the process of determining whether that groundwater heating system can move forward. So everybody, I think, felt comfortable with that thinking, and there was an agreement that yeah, we don't want to go ahead, spend money, and start pursuing a construction project that may not be compatible with that most desirable outcome. Okay, so that's where we are. In the short term, and so if it turns out we are a good candidate for this transition, that the timing of the construction on that is most likely going to be summer 28. Okay. In the short term, there is money that's been appropriated already, I think $24,000 to spend on some sidewalk repairs, which do seem like the most kind of short-term urgent need among all of these things that we've been talking about. So I think the school is going to essentially rip up that concrete sort of paver in that area of the sidewalk and replace it with asphalt, which I think everybody, including Matt, thinks will be easier to maintain and will help with kind of snow and ice as well. So the
And
only
we have
thing
some
that's going to happen in 27, it sounds like, is some
Right.
localized repair on specific problematic areas of the sidewalk.
AJ, I was going to ask,
Yeah.
I think we have some money sitting, $25,000 available for that
That's
project.
the 24. They returned all the other, when projects came in under budget, they returned all that except for that one, because that was originally a sidewalk deal, and the drainage off the roof. And they held on to that, so that's planned for that sidewalk. I think it's 24K.
Right.
Good.
So
That's great
You're
news.
absolutely right, George. And what I told them was that if that's not going to be sufficient to address the most urgent set of sidewalk needs, which I don't think anybody really knows, then there may be a supplemental appropriation that might need to happen at a special town meeting in the fall. But
Yeah.
they're still, they have two bids, but it's like the bids were for a larger scope than just fixing the sidewalk. So I think they're doing the research of, well, what would it cost just to do that sidewalk piece?
Okay, good.
So I think that's what's happening on the school front.
Some couple other pieces is that the mini split option
Oh, yeah.
is coming from the rapid, or whatever they use the word, from the
Accelerated,
MSBA, the
yeah.
accelerated funding from the MSBA, and Caitlin is going to apply for that. I think that there was a discussion of like, well, if you do the ground source, would you still need to do the mini splits? Thing about the mini splits is, like, I've been in the school right now, it's hot, it's very hot. And so they may end up being able to do both. And the other piece that became clear, this has been going on for a year of sort of back and forth, including, oh, here's a new idea, let's do ground source. Oh, here's a new idea, let's do this. And so how these projects, aside from having a group of people that should be notified for every step forward, it's also who is responsible for supervising and being the point person on school projects. And so, I think in the past that's been our town administrator, but we have a different building committee than we used to have. And so AJ and I talked about getting Frank to be the point person on this sidewalk part. It's already been approved by town meeting that there would be sidewalk repair. Frank knows a lot about this project, but it's really we've run into this idea of maintenance, repair, and what the school's responsible for and what the town's responsible for. But it's also like who pays attention, who does the work. And in some of the things that were going on, I was concerned because I do the school liaison and I listen. I wasn't sure that everybody understood the procurement rules. And so if Frank is the point person on this sidewalk project and he stays in touch with Haley, and I don't believe there's even, I don't know if there's going to be a bid process for it at that size of project. But we needed to talk about having the people that move the things forward instead of it spinning back and forth. And one of the things that happened with the school is that Anne struggled through the boiler issues with Jamrog and figuring out what was going on. And after the end of that, it was clear that her job is to be a school principal, and there's lots of things she has to do. So really having a sense of who helps take care of the maintenance, the repairs, and getting that person to agree that it's their responsibility and then take initiative. That it doesn't have to be in a vacuum, but it does have to be some kind of leadership.
Yeah. And to communicate with the vendors, right? Because like I feel like that trying to
And communicate with who?
the vendors, right, who are actually doing the work, right?
Yes.
I feel like I recall a couple of years ago where we would run into like a little bit of a problem where like, somebody would be like at the school to work on something and they get one message from like, the building committee and then a different message when they would talk to like Matt, this custodian. And it's like, that's never a good thing when different people are communicating different sets of instructions for the people that are actually doing the work.
And this is consistent with what Haley was saying about, having a facility manager.
Yeah.
Somebody who could take on all those roles, because I think the discussion about the principal wants to be a principal, not responsible for the building, applies to the library.
Mhm.
And I think it could apply even to the highway department. I mean, anybody who's using a building.
Mhm.
Well, the part of that identifying that has also come from Frank, because when they watched the library come up and the systems that were involved, and they're under warranty and supervision for a year, he said the building committee cannot be the responsible party for these. So we will have to wrestle with that. We were able to have this work done mostly by Becky. And she was very familiar with a lot of mechanical things. So if we're going to change it, we also need to plug that into our structure. Who's the who's the top person? Who do they communicate with? Who gets to make those decisions? After I talked to AJ, I wasn't able to go to that meeting. Then my mind has been spinning about this. And Dave said to me, so when you have a snow blower, where do you blow the snow? So they used to have a plow, a sidewalk plow, and now they're going to have a blower. And I was like, well, I guess they would blow over here. He said, well, if they get there before the plow, the town plow, they can blow it into the parking lot and they can move it. But when you think about that building, the whole east side has all those sheds. You can't
Right.
blow the snow that way, and you don't blow it against the school. And so it's this kind of thinking that we don't, maybe they've already
Yeah,
figured it out. I'd be happy if Matt had figured out how he was going to do that, but it's just kind of like one thing after another.
he must have, because he was the one who said we don't need a tractor, give us snow blowers. He had to
I
think
know,
through
I
that
know.
decision, no?
I don't know, but it just because this ECAC project is gonna probably come into the east end of the building. That's where the mechanical room is. So it's like, oh yeah, well, that's where we want to fix that sidewalk. Well, that's okay. We'll fix the sidewalk before some kid falls and smashes their face. And if we have to if we have to rip it up again, that's just a little piece. But it's the sequence of things. And AJ said that the work we had at town meeting, we approved a loan, I mean, spending to Berkshire Design about the parking lot. And that information will be relevant. They're taking core samples to figure out what's underneath it and what kind of pavement you would need. So without going into doing it, that information is relevant.
Yeah.
But it's been this way for this year. What's the cart before the horse? So I think the meeting they had will help decide what is the sequence. But somebody needs to keep looking and saying, in fact, David thinks that there's still a bucket over that vent that was draining water into the boiler system. It's like, yeah, okay, somebody needs to be the person seeing that, and maybe a bucket is a fine solution. I don't
Right,
know.
but they should
Or
at least
what
be
kind-
aware of it and make that determination. I mean,
Yeah. And what kind of bucket, really?
yeah.
But I was thinking, as you're talking, though, it shouldn't be volunteer committee people should not be the coordinating all this. It really, I think at this point needs to fall in the town administrator. I don't see another way to do that.
I think she can do it with the building committee because
Yes.
the difference of this building committee, when they took out the old one and put in a new charge, you can see
Yes.
the level of detail in the charge.
Yes.
And so there has to be some real talking back and talking to each other.
And
Yes.
one caveat, one thing I'll just say is sometimes you get a person who comes in and they're enthusiastic and they take the reins and they take care of a lot of stuff and then they leave and it doesn't get done anymore. And so it's the point of a policy, right, is to have a process set in place in stone. And I hate to say people are interchangeable, but over time people are going to be interchanging and we need to make sure that these things continue to survive
Well,
personnel
again,
changes.
this might end up being something the select board really needs to focus on.
Yeah.
How do we do this? The coordinating. And Becky was able to do this. This was really
She was the
wonderful.
glue.
She was the glue. Haley has other glue, but this may not be her glue. But we still need the policy very, very clear.
Just one thing you just reminded me of, Susie, just a detail here is that I think a significant portion of this scope of work that the Berkshire Design Group has been funded for is to do a comprehensive survey of the parking lot area and including testing at various points to see what the
Substrate.
substrates are at various places. And I think the hope is that that's a product that is going to be needed for any of these projects that are going to require us to rip up parts of the parking lot. So
And right. And so the funding for that has already been approved, right? That
Yeah.
was approved at town meeting. So that work is going on, even if they decide that the parking lot project is not necessarily.
yeah,
Okay.
although I did get the impression that
They've
they
already
were
started.
that they were under that they were under the impression that they couldn't start the actual work until July 1, even though I think we had a conversation at a recent meeting where we said no, it's possible for them to do that, but in any event.
That's Gail's call.
Yeah, exactly. So in any event, as of last week, they hadn't actually started to do any work. At least that was the message that was communicated at that meeting. So anyway, but it should be starting soon. Okay, so that's it on the elementary school stuff. I just wanted to let you guys know that this Four Towns group, kind of informal group, is still meeting periodically. I'm getting sort of like less and less optimistic that anything sort of concrete is gonna come out of all of this because it's so complicated and that the regional school committee has so much on their plate and the superintendent has so much on her plate, that it's just hard to see how, like, I think we're all wanting to everybody to like commit to doing this kind of more long-term kind of thinking and planning. And in any event, I did want to let you know that this group still gets together like via Zoom like every 6 weeks or so. I'm going to share with you a document I have a homework assignment, which is related to something that was discussed, and you'll probably recall this, which is like wanting to be able to document a more complete picture of what education spending um, looks like from each of the member towns in the regional district, beyond the sort of basic things that are easy to pull out from
Right.
our budgets, like our, appropriation for the elementary school, our assessment from the regional school, our debt service. Um, so things like, a percentage of our retirement and health insurance benefits are obviously go to, compensating school employees, for example. And so like those
Yeah.
kinds of things, like the amount of cash reserves that we apply specifically for school related costs is, so anyway, this is the template that Brian Harvey from Amherst has put together, and I'm gonna attempt to fill out, although we did actually try to do this earlier this year. It sort of stalled a little bit, but we're kind of recommitting to do this and then um, basically pull it together so that we can have a kind of more complete picture of what each town um, is actually spending on education related costs. So when I fill this out, I'm going to send it to all of you. If you see things that you have questions about or you think things are missing, if you can email me back, but don't reply all, just reply to me. Because I don't want to violate the open meeting rules and whatnot. With those kinds of questions and comments, that would be great. Okay.
AJ, is this something you're gonna need Gail support on, or Haley or?
Yeah, I think I did get some support from Gail
Brian.
already, because when we first talked about the idea of doing this, I had asked her to estimate what proportion of our
That was Ryan.
oh, that was Ryan, right? Of our fringe benefits are, go to school employees. So that information did, that he came up with a percentage. It's in my email. I can't remember if it was 75% or
I think it
60%.
was 65
Yeah,
and
I'll pull it up, but
Yeah.
it was something like
yeah,
that.
we made a chart, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I may need Gail. I mean, there's some stuff that I think is going to be kind of impossible. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. So if you look at these items here, so this was like very important to Amherst. They were like very keen on including this, because I get it because it's their DPW that I think maintains the athletic fields. And so that, that's a pretty significant piece of work, like bit of work that they do. So somehow, I don't know how they're going to do this. They're going to have their DPW sort of estimate how much time they spend on maintenance tasks related to. So I suppose I could ask.
Yeah, Dave Grenier, what
Yeah,
is the
Dave
time
could do
for
something.
plowing out the school?
Yeah. Do they cut the the grass on the big school field?
Well, I was thinking that they might, because when they gave up the tractor, it gave up the mower, I believe. So, and the mowing is really the soccer field and the track field. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he
All
can
right.
fill you in.
Yeah, so I'll ask Dave for that. So that obviously 12 is not something that we contribute to, but for 11, I'll ask Dave for that. But yeah,
And also, when you get from the elementary school budget, the maintenance
yeah.
elements, you could pull from their
Well,
budget.
except if it's part of the elementary budget, it's going to be in this elementary appropriation cell. So the idea of this was to think about costs that fall outside of the appropriation. So like what are things we spend
Right.
money on that
Okay.
we don't actually see
Right.
are part of the appropriation for, in this case, the elementary school or the regional assessment. And
So
so
those Jamrog bills that got paid by the FinCom and the
yeah, there
other
you go.
couple things. Yeah.
That's an excellent example. So yeah, like those kinds of emergency repair things that we're always doing, the heating system at the school, is a perfect example of that. So I would add those to the sort of elementary grounds and maintenance. So yeah, so it's things like that, Jim. It's things like, we don't have a health insurance line in the elementary school budget, right? We have a health insurance line for all town employees, but 65% of those employees are school employees. So we have to, that's money that we're spending on education related costs, but that are sort of hidden if you're
Yeah.
only paying attention to the elementary school appropriations. So,
And also Medicare, workers'
Yep.
comp, and also a part of that health insurance is also retired teachers.
right.
So
Yep.
the OPEB.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's the fact that at the regional school, any excess or deficiency is kept inside the regional budget. In our town, that money comes back as free cash.
Right.
So there's a trail there.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good that's a very good point, Susie. Like there's not a line in this worksheet that we use to record money that gets sent back at the end of the year, which we probably should include. So that's an excellent point. Yeah.
It also doesn't look like it includes projected maintenance, like this project we're doing on the parking lot. We don't have, it's not fixed yet, but it is going to hit the town at some
Yeah.
point.
So this is specifically for FY25, but there is
I see.
there is a line for capital
Yeah.
costs. So like if we've done this, right? Like let me think, we had a year where we spent money on cameras, right? We didn't borrow money. We allocated free cash for security cameras at the school, right? This year we have that curtain, whatever it's called, that system, divider system, in the multi-purpose room. We are spending free cash for that, so that has to be recorded under the elementary capital. So it's those kinds of things we do want to capture, which for Amherst is a huge thing because they're building a whole school. So and they obviously want to capture that as education related spending that they're doing for good reason. But yeah, so
what
you
are
know,
what are they going to do with this?
yeah,
I mean,
so it's a good question.
It's-
I can say that the vibe I get from this group is not that it's like the point is to say, well, this town is spending way more than this other town. It's not feeling like that's the goal or the purpose. But I think the purpose is in part like the school committee has made a point at various times about how much sort of the proportion of total municipal spending that is spent on education costs. Like there's a number that the school committee has shared, and I think they've made an argument that as a proportion that number has declined in recent years. And I think the thought here is partly that like there's a desire to get a more comprehensive, complete account of like, well, what do we actually spend in each year on these costs? I think that's the primary purpose, is to
Okay.
be able to have a more accurate sense of what each community is spending on education related costs. Susie.
There was a part of the meeting when the group that included Deb Leonard
Yeah.
presented sort of factoids.
Yeah. Fiscal
And
sustainability.
in it, they included that there were all sorts of decreases in programming and stuff like that. And some of that helps in the argument with towns who've been saying, cut it, you know. And so having a number that's more complete and looking at it over time, they're going to see that in fact there has been a reduction in the education. And when we did that pie, which doesn't include all these factors, in fact,
Mhm.
we are having some things go up in our budget, so the education piece is smaller proportionately. So there's lots of thinking. Oh,
Yeah.
thinking, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Instead of just reacting, this would be some facts that could help show some of those forces.
But April, you asked that question, and I think, and as I sit here, I'm thinking this is something we're going to have to manage, right? Like it's like this. It's good to have information, right? And I think we probably would all agree that it's a good thing for us to have a more complete understanding of what, because we talk about this all the time, what percentage of our budget is spent on education costs. That, but you know, in fairness, that is a little bit of a misleading um, number because of these sort of, I don't want to call them hidden costs, but there are other
Indirect costs, but
places, indirect costs that where it's not obvious that, but it certainly is fair to say that these are costs that pertain to what it requires to educate children,
right,
operate a school, and so on. So, yeah.
simple math in the budget says it's 57% when we take the total education, but then we all say, well, it's more like, you know, 2/3.
Yeah.
So it would be good to have to
Yes.
focus in on that.
Yes.
And
But
not all towns do that distribution the same way. That's one of the big significant things.
yes.
Yeah, and it looks like at least for this analysis, all 4 towns would be if they all are
Would
following the
show it
same.
out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually,
Um,
going back to April's comment,
Mhm.
again, once you get a good handle on what the real number is, what do you do?
Yeah.
What will we do different?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
We should
Uh,
change
with
the
that-
assessment. The
yeah.
assessment method should be changed.
Oh, yeah,
again.
April. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is sort of, so what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And
Because it's only one point. I think you said it's a 2025 year.
Yeah.
it's not-
I think,
So
I think
we're not going to learn. We're not going to learn that we're spending more or less.
well,
We've got 1 point.
we're starting with this year. I think we're also going to do
The
FY
template.
26, but I think right now the focus is on like getting a template. And because this is the other thing is
Yeah.
this idea, somebody just said it, like being able to make more kind of like apples to apples kinds of
Mhm.
comparisons. Because there are some differences. Amherst, they do have some, if I recall correctly, they do have some health insurance costs that are in their school appropriation, but it's not all of there's like there's certain categories of employees that get paid
When they pay their insurance bill, they actually break it into two lines, regular
Yeah.
employees and
Okay.
elementary school employees.
Something like that. So like
Yeah.
part of what this accomplishes too is it sort of like allows us to do kind of a more apples to apples kind of
Mhm.
comparison across town.
I'd
But
be curious if they do their elementary school budgeting
mhm,
in the same frame that they do in their regional school, because one of the things in talking to Caitlin is that is part of the place it becomes differentiated. The way a regional school runs its budget
mm,
is specifically framed differently. But I don't know if their elementary school
Mm.
has their health in their elementary school budgets. I don't know. This will
Well,
become
it sounds
clear
like
because
AJ
it's
thinks
here.
they do. I mean, that's what AJ said, right?
Find out.
it's for certain. I don't know exactly, but it's for certain groups or categories of employees it does, and then for others it doesn't. And I can't tell you right now what the differentiation is, but I'll find out.
Mhm.
But it is, yeah, um, it is
And-
there. So I suspect that yeah, well we'll get clarity on that once we get this information from each.
And if this is done annually, that this really could over
Yeah.
a short period of time, relatively
Yeah,
give some important data. I think that would make sense.
yeah,
My only concern is when you start looking at this kind of data, it becomes political. And
Yeah.
if our numbers or somebody's numbers become lower, people start saying, "Well, look, they don't have as great of a need." I just that's
Yeah.
always a concern, but
yeah.
Yep.
you can't
It's
take the
something,
politics.
it's definitely something to manage. You're right. Data is good, but it's like and
Why?
information is good, but it's like how do people leverage this for different sort of outcomes that they're pursuing? Is
Analyze responsibly.
Well, and particularly because Pelham is in a real big transition of some sort.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
and how is that going to shake out?
yeah.
Um,
You're reminding me that we need to we need to touch base with. There's this group. I think
yeah.
we talked about this. There's a panel that was put together and created by the Pelham Select Board to essentially forecast a few different models for their elementary school costs. One of the models was like a status quo model of continuing to run their elementary school. One of them was to have those students tuition into other neighboring schools. I can't remember the third one. I feel like had something to do with like maybe the school how they do school choice. I can't remember now, but there were like 3 or 4 different models. So I think that work they were given a deadline of like I think in September or something like that. So I think they might be like winding down their work this summer, and I think we should probably get an update on what they've what they learned and maybe even I don't know, maybe sort of reinforce the idea that we're open to conversations if it feels
Yep.
like an appropriate time for them. So something like that. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna next time I talk to John, I'm gonna mention that. Unfortunately, he's not on this group, but obviously he talks to them. All right, so that's what's happening for town square. I think the goal, if there is like a clear goal, is to like for this group is to have the school committee commit to working with towns on not just single year budget questions and concerns. That's what dominates to the extent that we do any planning together with the school, the superintendent, the finance director, the school committee, and representatives of town select boards, town councils, finance. It's all focused on the upcoming, fiscal year
Right.
budget, and we never have an opportunity to do any kind of long-term thinking. Well, if it's the case, if we can all agree that we're on a sort of unsustainable path, not sustainable path, then what are some structural reforms that are worth considering, including
Is there a statement of purpose for this group? I mean, because
there's yeah, I mean there's like draft memos that like different people have. I wouldn't call it like a mission statement, but there
Yeah.
are yeah, I'll pull together a few of the documents that I think I've shared them, but like this is going back a ways, so I'll share them with you.
Who
It's not
else is in it besides you, Brian Harvey, Stephen Weiss?
it is from Leverett, it's Stephen Weiss and Patricia Duffy, is it?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. From Pelham, it's Bob
Agolia.
Ogolia. From Amherst, it's Lynn, it's Brian Harvey, and it's Kathy Schoen.
Shane. Yeah, Shane.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Shane, yeah. And then that's it. And Haley comes sometimes for Shutesbury. I've been joining when I can regularly. Jim, I've without talking to you, I did tell folks that the Shutesbury Select Board has a new member who has lots of finance committee expertise and is very engaged on these issues, going back to the assessment method questions. So I think once you start your term, I think there's a seed has been planted that there's a hope that you'll be able to engage with this group.
Okay. Is it, right now it's just you and Haley?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, no, and it sort of fits with some of the things we're working on.
Exactly.
Just-
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely, I will say, it's like if it, I'm not sure, as I said earlier, like I'm not sure this group is going to accomplish a lot, like of sort of like concrete steps that we're going to be able to point to, but it definitely feels like the most kind of collegial sort of atmosphere that I think has existed probably amongst towns
Yes.
getting together to talk about school finance related stuff.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susie?
And I think that as much as we struggled to get the assessment method settled, the last couple of years, you can hear some people saying, well, let's look at that again.
Yeah.
I believe this body of information coming from a different starting point when it's not oppositional will help sustain a picture that justifies the assessment method we're using.
Yeah.
And the other piece is the state is still like way over all over the place. So we know that Chapter 70 funding is different among the towns. It's not simply there's factors in there. And so hopefully they are going to work on the Chapter 70 formula that's in the plan.
I'd say they
And
are.
maybe they can start being more predictable and stable. They are not right now.
They need to come up with a method that is appropriate for what's going on.
But I think sometimes people are wishing that the state's going to ride in with something. And it's
Right.
like, well, that's not helping.
Hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for a long time. And the thing is, I don't want to digress. The state's come up with new revenue. How many different ways in the last 10 years, and how much of that is rolled to education?
Right.
Certainly, I mean, upper education has benefited, but that's been it.
Well, I talked with Aaron whenever, I can't remember what month, it must have been May. And there used to be a thing called joint funding something. And so they didn't do it in little pieces that floated in at the end of the fiscal year. And there's some awareness that these late supplemental bills are not helpful in terms of planning. So he said, yeah, they know about that, and they have been talking about having a model for funding that's more holistic in terms of pieces So that'd be nice.
Mhm.
All right, George, can we shift gears and talk about the long range forecasting tool?
Sure, sure. Love to
Um,
show it to everybody.
Yeah. Do you want me to
I can share the screen.
share it?
Yeah, no, I'll drive it if you don't
that'd be
mind.
great. All right, let's see.
Actually, I wonder if there's anything in what we're doing that could be applicable to this, the school
I sent the
meetings.
request. I'm sorry, what was the last part?
No, I was just wondering if there was something about what we're proposing to do that could be, folded into what the schools are trying to do together. Really looking ahead as well.
Yeah, I think well, kind of somewhat related. I had a conversation with Steve where I explained what, sure, I didn't show, wasn't ready to show anybody, but like I explained what we were working on, and Steve was really interested in it. So I think the approach that we're taking with this tool is something, um, George, I know you have a relation, you have a friendship with Steve. You might want to reach out to him, but like, I think this is the kind of thing that it might be worth sharing with our colleagues.
I think once we
Yeah.
are comfortable with what we have and we learn how it can benefit us and how we can use it,
Yeah.
I'm happy to share with others. The state does have, if you go to the DLS website, they have a whole lot of information in their templates and their way of doing long range planning. What
Mhm.
I'm doing was basically taking our budget and morphing it into something that I think would be useful to us.
Mhm.
And I think it's pretty good. If you all agree, then sure, we'll continue to use this. But other towns could use that resource. To go and try and learn all that is going to be time consuming, as opposed to, I'm just letting you know there are resources out there to help towns do long range planning. That said, I'd be happy if this turns out to be a really good model. I'd be happy to share it with Leverett if Steve's interested. Sure, I'd sit down and walk
Well,
it.
and maybe other towns have something they're doing in a similar way or trying to move in this direction. We don't know.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there are some. I would bet that the long range planning is mostly happening with the larger towns that have finance departments.
I bet, yeah, I mean,
I think you're right.
That's typically what we see with this kind of.
Amherst has Sean Mangano, like no other town has got like a full-time, finance director that can, yeah, I think.
It's
he's
the
much-
bigger ones, for sure. 60,000 residents and above. Then now you start having
Yeah.
more robust finance departments.
So we could have a finance department that also is working on, my brain just farted. Where were we? Anyway,
Okay,
like,
everybody sees this, right?
Yep,
So the first thing I'm going to say is I basically took our operating budget and our revenue schedule and I flipped them upside down. We've got the expenses in here. Then you can see I've got the different years. So this is the actual budget.
so you
Right here.
populated all of this FY 27 column with our actual final budget.
Yep, this is what was approved in May,
Uh-huh.
that number right there. And then what I have is subsequent years, 5 years, and they increase based on, so here's the first thing I'll show you. I've created these categories and I have these percentages. I just threw these numbers in here. They're not real. They don't mean anything. This is where we're going to spend a lot of our time, I believe, on different analysis. All the salary lines that receive a COLA change based on the percentage we put in here. All the contracted ones will change based on this percentage. And right now I kept them the same. And these are just WAGs, wild ass guesses. I'm just throwing these numbers in.
Yeah.
I got the education line. We can play with that each year. We can increase it at whatever rate we want. Same thing with the regional school. The health insurance is a big one. Energy is a big one. And then all others. And I use a real small percentage because a lot of our departments,
Right.
a lot of our small departments give us level budgets or small increases in the non-salary lines.
Mhm.
So, and again, these aren't real. This is just, I'm trying to mimic kind of what we've been seeing.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, and then this is the result of the budget increase. This number here, number line 15, comes from the result of all these percentages from line right here.
Mhm.
So it's just so that as we change these, we can see what it's doing to the bottom line without actually having to scroll down to the bottom line.
George, George, what would the all others category, what roughly, what does that add up to, you think, percentage wise of the overall?
I don't know, but I could look that up, Jim. That's a
Yeah.
good question. I don't know. Um, but you can imagine that, all the salaried employees, the education, the health insurance, and even the energy, those add up to a pretty big
You know,
percentage. So
yeah,
I could probably find out for you what those are as a
Yeah.
percentage. I'd have to do some
It
legwork.
probably is pretty small.
I think
Mhm.
the first question I would have for all of you is obviously one of the things we're gonna have to talk about as a group is what percentages you use on what years. And
Mhm.
I think ultimately with this project, what we're going to be doing is various scenarios. What if, what if, what if, and then we're
Mhm.
going to look at the results. Once we decide what the results are that we really want to report on, which I think in many people's minds is what does it do to excess levy capacity?
It also seems important to dovetail this with the capital planning work, because that's a lot of our big debt service.
That's right. The debt service part is a big part. And in
Mhm.
fact, that's the part that's going to need work.
Yep.
I set up the template, but there's questions that have to be answered. And back to my previous comment about getting information from Ryan about our debt service. That's what we need for the current debt to put in here to see what we're paying for the next 5 years for the things that we have. So yes, that is. So my first, my one of my questions is obviously we're gonna have to think about what percentages to use, and are there any categories that we can add to this, things that would change different than the all others? And I think we can answer that as we walk through this.
Mhm.
So here's the way we're going to control the percentages. I'm going to close that, and then what I'm going to open up. So there's the percentages, and then down here is the budget as we know it. Wait, I want to close this one now. And so those percentages we saw, they affect this line, the salaried ones, that's affecting this line. So that's why that's going up.
Mhm.
And that's how this basically works.
So George, for every line in the budget, there's a cost increase factor that is tied to the top of the table there.
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Are there any lines where we essentially,
That I've hard coded.
yeah, exactly.
I think debt service will be that.
Yep, great.
And I'm not sure, but we might have to do it with things like the trash contract,
Mm.
Right.
ambulance contracts. But right now, the trash contract's in its last year, so it's an unknown. So right now, it's growing at the all other rate.
Mhm. Yeah.
And debt service, I left. Again, debt service, we're just going to have to get the numbers and
Yep.
just drop those in. And as April pointed out, we need a capital plan to see what other loans we might have to take in the course of the next 5 years.
Well, I'm also wondering, would it make sense to, look back a few years, and see what those hard numbers were and help us project ahead? If we
If
went,
there's a line that we need to do that, they're here. So
oh, there they are.
there's
Yeah.
the actuals right there.
Oh,
So
perfect.
we can look and get trends if we want to. I've hidden them by just C to K, but I
Yep.
can expand those. So
Oh,
as we go, April, we
Yeah.
have at least, it's just the budget numbers, not necessarily what really happened underneath, but we can certainly see trends.
yep. Oh, that's really helpful. I
Good
think we're
question.
onto something.
So
Mhm.
basically the whole budget section, that's what's going on here. That's what I'm doing. Let me just go down and just show you the debt service. So you recognize all these lines. I mean, you recognize this is what it
There
is.
are there are friends.
Yeah, there are friends. And you can
Yes.
see we have categories here. So if we wanted to look at the COLA and wanted to see which lines did that affect and what do they look like, we could just look at the COLA lines and see what they are. So that's what this category is here.
Okay.
That's helpful.
And as you're playing with it, as you folks get your hand on this, if you want to mess around with it on your own, just be aware of these things. Let me All right, so I'm going to move right down to the bottom of this because I think you all understand the concept. And that's really what I think today's goal is, just to
Yeah.
understand this, everybody to be able to see what we're doing. And then you can chew on it, get some ideas, and hopefully we can subsequently have meetings to improve it, to revise it, to ask important questions. So there's the debt service section. You know, this needs to be refined. I think this goes 2 more years, but I don't know. So I just put in 2 more years. And that's what Ryan can help us with.
Okay,
I-
so every time, as you know, thinking about how this tool is going to be kind of a living document, anytime at the end of every year when we have new capital projects that get approved at town meeting or a special town meeting that um that require some amount of borrowing, we're going to essentially add that project to this list and put in the um the proposed debt principal payments and interest payments for that project.
Yeah, which is, I thought about that too. And you can see I've already started that.
Yeah,
I think these are the two likely ones. And we know the fire truck for sure. And then the grader would probably be the next likely one.
yeah,
So yes, we can add things as we need them for sure.
okay, great.
So, and then the OPEB trust is one that's hard coded because that's never changes.
Yeah,
Well, it has changed, yes, but it typically has been 50. So we can talk about this. So, and what would happen if we kept it at 0? That's a part of the OPEB conversation as well as this conversation.
yep. And then, one of the things that I'm noticing here, right, is that we're not transferring funds to capital stabilization unless we plan for that here, right? And so that is something that I think we've talked about this year.
We did. In fact, that's another thing that was missing in our last meeting conversation about projects.
Yeah,
And I guess maybe it's not a summer project, but that was a project we were going to talk about because the capacity doesn't exist anymore the way it did in this operating budget.
yes,
And there are options, that it should be talked about. I think, AJ, that's something we need to pursue. What's happening to us? I'm on my soapbox. It's the same thing that's happened to all the other towns. They are losing their cash reserves.
yeah. Mhm.
We had that luxury for so long. So here's the operating budget, and these numbers will change as we change our percentages above, as we change the debt service, and anything else we think of that needs to be handled differently.
I'm just wondering, would it also help to track how much free cash comes back every year? Because that's somewhat a reflection of, money. It's weird because we appropriate it, but then it comes back to us. It's sort of like, where
I think
does
that's a
that
different
fit into it?
analysis. I think that's a different analysis. I think it can dovetail with this,
Yeah.
but I think, how we're using our cash reserves, what impacts our cash reserves, and how can we model those, I think it's its own thing.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, they are definitely linked together.
And that
Anyways.
would fit it. Yeah, go ahead.
So you can see I've got the operating budgets from prior years, actual spend. We got FY budget, 27 actual budget, and then we can project the future based on what we think will happen for various lines.
Wow.
And so you can think about, are we missing any lines that might be important or we need to have more control over? Then what I do is I have our sources of aid. I'm going to shrink this again just so we can see it all. I want one. Sorry about that. Okay. So here was just to orient you, here we are at the total operating budget. The next section is our income. So we have state income, we have local, and then we have the WPAT loan. And then in FY27, we're using $208,000 to fund the budget. And so those things combined, the non-tax levy revenue combined is 1.8 million. That gets subtracted from the total operating budget number to come up with the amount that we need from the tax levy. And that's this number. So one of the things we'll have to do is ask ourselves, how are all these aid numbers
Yeah.
going to change over time? And I think, AJ, when we met, we made a decision just to throw in here some percentages for Chapter 70 and the UGA money.
Yeah.
But this model allows us to mess around with the state income. Like we might want to add a line, or we might want to increase the amount of money we're going to get for the Quabbin. That may be a
Right.
new revenue source that we have to consider.
Right.
So the same thing is true for the local. Let me go back here. Same thing is true for, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. The local estimates, I've got all of them listed under there. I won't show them to you, but you all know them. We can look at those and how those might grow, and that will affect this number. And then again, we might even want to, for cash, we have the health insurance, we have SPED, we've got the veterans benefits. Is there an amount of cash that we would put to the budget in future years? Like veterans benefit, do we do 75% every year funded with cash? And so we can also add cash lines. And again, they're all here. We can use the ones we've been using, or we can add new ones.
Mhm.
And into these different years to get an amount here to lower the amount needed to be raised from the tax levy.
Huh.
So basically, we got the operating budget. We can make estimates of how it'll increase, where it'll increase at the detail level, and what the total increase will be at the total level. And then we can look at our revenues. And once we make estimates on revenues, then we can see what we need to raise from the tax levy, which brings us to the next section. And you'll all recognize this. This is the section where we calculate the levy limit each year. And we will have to make decisions about what we think new growth is.
Mhm.
The 2.5 is an easy one. We won't have to do anything with that. That's just a formula. And man, well, we need an override. We could actually put that in there if we needed it, but let's not. And then of course we know what the library debt is going to be. I think we do. We'll get better numbers on that once they complete the whole project. And then this right here, right? The sorry about raising my voice. The debt exclusion that we get from the debt service schedule that's included in the regional school budget.
Mhm.
And that gives us the total allowable limit. And so this excess levy capacity, line 407, I'm going to bring you back to line, this line right here, the amount needed from the budget subtracted from, I'm actually going to subtracted from the maximum allowed levy is our levy capacity. So once the budget is estimated, once these revenue items from the state and local are estimated, then we'll see what the impact is on excess levy capacity.
And when this goes to zero, that's when we're in override territory.
Yeah, and I actually made a note about that right here, AJ. Yeah, positive values are amount of the 2.5 override needed
Got it.
if we were going to fund the expenses that we have at the top.
Yeah.
So, and right now, don't put any credence on any of these. These don't mean anything because we have some decisions to make.
Yeah.
But this is how it works. And then lastly, this is just from the old thing, just the new revenue. Lastly, well, not lastly, there's two things left. First, there's the average single family impact. And we'll have to talk about how much do we think assessed values are going to grow and how much do we think the average single family is going to grow. The tax rate calculation is the usual calculation. It's the tax levy divided into this value. And so, more decisions that we'll have to make. But you're all familiar with this.
Yeah.
And then the bottom line, this is where these are all formulas driven by the data above, and we can see what's important. We can see how much the budget increases year to year, what that percentage is. We can see the increase in the tax levy. This is coming from that tax levy line. We can see whether we generated or actually used, right? Or in these cases, generated excess levy capacity because the excess levy capacity started growing here. Obviously not real, but what's up with the numbers up there now. The changes in the debt exclusion. Obviously, in FY27, it's a big increase because now we're doing the library, and the regional one doubled. But based on what we have in there now, it kind of moderates, if you will. And then cash reserves use for the budget, because that's really kind of important. And then our average single family tax bill change. It's just taking these changes from year to year.
Mm.
And if there's any other key metrics that we want to get out of this, I can add them if they're, accessible up above. So that's essentially what this does. We take the operating budget, we make some decisions about where it's going to grow, at what rates it's going to grow, refine things like new contracts, new debt service as the years go along, and then try to predict what the revenue situation will be from the state and local. And then the rest of it just falls into place.
You mentioned metrics, George. Would there be one here for reserves, year-to-year reserves, what our current reserve situation is, whether it be free
You mean
cash?
cash reserves?
Well, free cash and stabilization, capital
Again, yeah, I don't
stabilization.
think that's a function of what we're doing here. I think is, April.
Well, yeah, well, it gives us something to, what our cushion is, to use cash reserves. Like
No, I agree.
we'll
I
be
just think it's,
we'll
I
be
think
making decisions on plugging in cash reserves into that one line there. But part of that will be based on what are we starting with for cash reserves? Or
yeah, I think
stabilization or capital stabilization. If we're looking at, or we'll be plugging in capital projects in here and how those projects are going to be funded, whether it's borrowing or whether it's using stabilization.
So here's how I think I would approach that. And I'm sorry, I see your hand up, Susie, too, but just to respond to Jim, I think when we have this long range capital plan document, I think that's probably a place where we want to make some very preliminary assumptions
Mhm.
about how each of those projects gets funded
Mhm.
Yeah,
in that document. And then for those projects that, and I think as integrated in that document can be a running ledger of our cash reserve accounts, and we can
yeah,
see, it's taken
yeah,
away. And to the extent that we actually add, that we fund capital stabilization is through the operating budget here in this
Mhm.
document, we can include those amounts in, but I think that probably belongs as part of the
yeah,
capital plan document.
yeah, yeah. I think I could
They
show
can
in
talk to
there.
each other, you're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
But yes, we have that template. We've got it. We do it annually, and we could do the same thing we do here, right?
yeah,
We have it for this year. We could extrapolate out into the future, and we could run up in, starting balance of all the stable reserves by each one, ending, starting next year, ending next year, starting the subsequent year, ending, and just roll that into the future. I think that's the other project we should be doing.
yeah. Because part of this long range plan is, okay, how do our reserves look 5 years from now using
Mhm.
these different scenarios?
Yeah.
We got scenario A, B, C, and D, and one of the things we're going to want to look at is how do our reserves look like
I
five
think
years from now?
I think the two places where the two interact is how much cash reserves would we use to fund these budgets in the future? And certainly knowing if there's a lot of reserves gives us confidence that maybe we can use some. And then
Yeah,
the other thing is how do we fund the stabilization accounts?
yeah,
Because that historically the two are connected.
And I think the other way in which these documents need to talk to each other is that we need to know what our debt service expenses are in each of these years, and we're not going to know that unless we get it from the capital plan.
Capital plan, yeah.
Right. And and yeah, how much are we adding to those those reserves through the operating budget? So I think those are the ways in which these things need to communicate. So, George, I think first of all, it's like, well, let me go to Susan. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, I think this helps structure our perspectives.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to acknowledge that we are volunteers and do not have a crystal ball. So part of the way we get free cash is because we projected some expenses. Um, we've actually been through some phases, maybe is the right word. So we earmarked money, placeholders for the police chief and other things. And that ended up generating some cash reserves and it helped us make line-to-line transfers. But there's a few areas that we, in the look, like when April suggested looking back, we can probably see some of the areas we were not um, projecting. So the position adjustment, we went through a change of personnel. And in the end, if we look back, we'll probably see that there were quite a lot of increased expenses for personnel that were adjusting to the market, and we still have some pending to adjust to the market. Um, we also had the trash contract is going to be a pretty big adjustment, and that comes every 5, 7 years, whatever it is. The buildings weren't in the capital plan, and yet the buildings, as they age along with the rest of us, need to be seen as a potential expense that we don't know how we're gonna figure that percentage out, but it's clearly a part of what's going on. Um, and things like suggesting we have a facilities manager is coming out of as our town moves along. Um, that's a position that wasn't thought of before. And I think those were ones that popped into my mind in terms of our best guesses. Um, are that's what we can do. We can make best guesses, but
Right.
sometimes we don't see some of those pieces coming. When I look at the personnel, which I mean, labor is a big part of it. We bumped the highway up, but it wasn't just personnel. In fact, it probably wasn't personnel much at all. It was
Mhm.
um, that some budgets were underfunded in the past. And so we need to, I don't right off the top of my head see any one that was as big as the highway. I hope we've met most of the other ones. Maybe that's where you see like the trash contract that's coming. And that's was it wasn't underfunded, but like the contract before the business went out because it was more expensive than they put their bid in for. So there are I don't know if there's any other areas that we haven't really seen coming. In the personnel, we have a tax collector and an accountant.
Mhm.
And I guess those are the two main ones, and I'm going to guess those are going to be adjusted when we get
Yep.
to putting their replacement people in.
Yep.
And then we could maybe personnel will come up with some of the other areas that we haven't thought of before.
Mhm.
Um, so those are all um, I think those are all good faith efforts we've made, but we didn't have the experience and by looking back, we might see if there's anything else that was not seen coming and therefore would be put into our picture a little bit more clearly. But I would say that general government may have some pieces we're not aware of yet.
Yep.
That's always going to be the case. These long range analysis, you cannot predict everything.
Oh,
And,
I understand that. I'm
and
not saying that, but I feel like how do you get closer? One of the ways is by looking back and by sort of thinking ahead. those two
Yeah.
things.
So I think another way to I guess another way to address that, Susie, would be to build in like
Contingency.
a contingency factor in here, which is
Hmm.
like like we know that there's going to be some level of unanticipated, and it's never going to be unanticipated decreases, or it rarely is, right? It's on net, it's always an unanticipated increase. And we can always, I think, build in a line if
Mhm.
we think it's appropriate, which is to say, let's just add, a percent or whatever I don't know what the correct amount is, but that gives us a little bit of that safety buffer for those things that are just going to be unknown.
Yeah.
I would have said we have to have an inflation factor.
Well,
Um,
and that's, that's what this is,
You think,
the all other.
Right.
And the other thing I'll tell
well,
you is whatever we do here, I can make a copy of this
Mhm.
and we can play with that. And we can end up with multiple copies of this with different things going on with the contingency, without the contingency, inflation, 2%, 3%. And so, and then we can have a summary document. Here's what happens when, here's what happens when. I'm just throwing that out. We don't have to do that, but I'm telling you that we can be flexible here. We can try different things without worrying about losing the last thing we did, because I can keep a record of each one.
right.
We
I
also-
don't want to sound like I was criticizing. What I'm trying to do is
Oh, I don't think you are.
think about this
Mhm.
journey that we're on and how, I mean, I feel like we've done a lot better at anticipating some things, but how to learn to anticipate seems to me about if you look back, you get some version and then like a contingency because looking forward has been, I mean, did we anticipate the kind of inflation we just went through? It's
Yeah,
shocking to me. The
Hmm.
wages inflated. And some leaders say they don't care about inflation, they love it, but
Yeah.
But that's not.
suffering.
But we're also, we've talked about, are there other ways for the town to generate money
Yes.
other than property
yeah.
taxes?
Yes.
Yeah.
That,
That was the other
And-
project.
right. And there are things I'm sure that we can access that I have no idea what they are.
And that's the bottom line is we couldn't have predicted PFAS 10 years ago, 5 years
No.
ago.
Right.
You can't predict everything. So at some point,
Mhm.
maybe building in the contingency is the right answer.
Mhm.
Mhm.
George, can we go to that list of next steps? I think that would be helpful to sort of,
Yeah, this is me throwing my thoughts on paper. So
yeah,
yeah.
no, this is good.
That's helpful.
The first two, so I guess broadly, even so there are lots of specific things here, but I think broadly the process here is like, what are some we've got a very good structure here, right? Now, what are some of the assumptions that we think ought to be built into this thing about all of those in inflation factors for all the different categories? We're going to need to make like at least preliminary. We can build different models to compare things, but we should probably have like a baseline set of assumptions that we all feel comfortable with.
Hmm.
I assume the first two items on here have to do with that. What's an appropriate assumption about how much the ARPS assessment is going to increase in each year, right? What's an appropriate assumption about how much the elementary school budget appropriation is going to increase each year? So I think there's that. Then I think there's like a bunch of things that need to actually be hard coded into this, where because we actually don't have to do the guessing of what is the right inflation factor. We actually know. So I think you already mentioned that all the debt service expenses, like we know what those are. We can get those from Ryan for current projects, and then every time we have a new one, we can add that to it. I can tell you right now, I did a little calculating, and the ARPS assessment over the last 3 years which I think it's like, yes, we can look at an average over a longer period of time, but like things have
It's-
escalated so much in the last 3 years. It feels like
Yeah.
not appropriate to average the last 10 years. So I took 3 year average, the last 3 years, and for the regional assessment, that's 2.5% actually. Funny enough. And for it's 2.54% for the last 3 years. Um,
That's regional school still.
yep.
Oh.
For the elementary school, if we take the last 3 years, it's 5.5%, which feels like a safer assumption to build into this than
I'm
3.5.
sorry, what was that number?
That was 5.5, which is a big increase, but like it doesn't do us any good to just put in a lower number that that we have a low degree of confidence
Yeah.
is actually going to be where we end up, right? And so it's hard to imagine after 3 years of 3.7% increase, 6.4%, 6.3%, that all of a sudden this is going to come down to like annual increases of 2.5. That doesn't seem likely.
And in that school number, really, we have to make assumptions about out of district placements.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for that reason, I don't think 5.5 is
We might want to break it
that
into
would say,
groups.
that assumption would say that we will continue to have new out of district people in a small school population. I don't think that's probably,
Well, and it also doesn't take into account the fact we might have a stabilization fund to smooth that out.
And it doesn't take into account that we applied cash reserves
Yes, to that.
years to deal with that.
But that we can account for in the revenue piece.
Right. But this 5.5% calculation here is just the average of the elementary school appropriation,
Yeah.
that line
Mm.
in the last 3 years. So
except for we had a number from the school committee that without the out of district, there
Right.
was some smaller number. And so we can say that this happened, but we can't
Yeah.
particularly say it's going to continue at that
Right.
rate.
Right. Gotcha.
This
So
is
this
not,
is exactly, but I think this is exactly the thing, right? We, as a group, we need to like say, okay, here's an argument for this cost factor. Here's an argument for this part. Can we get some consensus about what we feel we're comfortable with as a baseline assumption? Yeah.
Right.
I will say one thing about what I've built here is because I started from the budget, I've made something that's very granular.
Mhm.
And that can be helpful or that can be a quagmire. So we do kind of need to be careful about how deeply we really dive into this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like this next item on here, like, do we want to actually, that's a good question. Like, is it worth it to do the work of hard coding every existing contract right now? For, it's not a lot of employees, but it's
Well,
the handful,
one thing that we've been moving towards is making all the contracts increases for the managers based on the COLA increase for everybody else. So we could make an assumption that that's it. And then when that really falls out of a structure, if you will, a trend is when somebody gets hired or when a new contract is signed and somebody negotiates something higher in year one. And then the following years, it's usually just the COLA rate.
Yeah.
So to some extent, we could just use the COLA number.
Yeah. It might, yeah. In some
I'd
ways,
be okay with that. In fact, AJ, just finish my thought. That's what I did to start, is I kept them both the same.
yeah, I think I've come full circle on this. At one point, I thought, well, why not just like actually hard code actual numbers where they're known? Like, why make a guess if we know the actual number? But for precisely the reason you just said, it's like we could hard code
Yes.
all those numbers. First of all, that's work, but it also doesn't take into the account that people are not going to fulfill their contracts, right? Like some people are going to leave and we're going to hire them with people who either cost more or cost less. And it's like, all this stuff probably washes out in the end if you do something like just apply the same COLA factor to those positions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think I've come full circle on
Hmm.
that. Right. So
Oops. I don't know what I just did there. Yeah, it's, assumptions about school. Do we really want to spend a lot of time in school transportation, or you want to just do the calculation like we did with the other ones using the information the numbers we know?
yeah,
Well, I won't do it now, but
right, but that's a question, right? Yeah. So um
and
obviously like we're not one assumption that's built into this is at least for these 5 years, we're not actually using any OPEB
Mhm.
revenue, right? Which I think is the right, yeah. I don't think we
yes.
at any point
But
talked about that, but yeah.
once we do our OPEB analysis, if we decide we want to, we can build that in
Yeah. Mhm.
easily enough.
Just add a revenue line for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And it'll be really nice to have this looped into the select board.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a really important tool that we're onto here.
Here's what I'm thinking, George, in terms of next steps. So I think if folks are comfortable, are folks comfortable with these because they have a big impact, obviously, these two assumptions about education costs. Do those feel like the right
The only thing I will say is,
Are you talking those first two lines
yeah,
here?
this first
Yeah.
two lines that we're seeing on the screen?
I think it's important to, I think history,
Mhm.
recent history is important. It's, which is what you really have here.
Mhm.
This is a 3-year history,
Where you're
right?
at. Yep.
I mean, I think it's a starting point.
Mhm.
what I would say is if we're going to use the 5.5 for the SES, then we know that some of that is for out of placement.
Mhm.
And we have to decide how we're going to fund a portion of that out of placement.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if,
And
there's two things here. One is it's good to have this 3-year average. Maybe that's not what you plug in for these various assumptions, but you use that to help drive your assumptions.
I'm just going to, oops, I don't know what's going on here. So we say 5.5.
I don't think that,
Yeah, I guess, again, my point was more, that's the history.
Mhm.
We might not necessarily need a plug-in history here, but that history information is important to have to help drive whatever we put in here.
Right. But we're, in terms of the baseline, what are we going to
Yeah.
use? Maybe today we
Yeah.
don't decide, but
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
3-year history good? But back to just answering AJ's question, I do think if we're going to keep the out of placement district portion of the increases here, then we have to ask ourselves, historically, we've been funding some of that with cash, and there is a way to do that in this model. So we need to talk about that as well, AJ, is what my point was.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got to, yeah. So I think the key things to do right now are to get are to come to some consensus about these first two numbers. We've I think appropriately opted for the simpler approach in terms of contracted costs for managers, where you'll just use the same COLA assumptions.
Mhm.
I think probably the most important thing we need is the debt service schedule from Ryan, right? So that you can actually code those in.
Yes, I think I agree. That's something that is completely off right now.
Yeah, right. And then I think, do we want to make an assumption about the trash hauling contract, like as a percentage increase? I wouldn't even know.
Well,
According to Merrill, it's like it's going to be less, but I wouldn't plan on that.
well, we could use the inflation factor on. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did I make that separate? I don't think I did. No, I didn't.
George, go back to where you just were. Isn't inflation part of these, what you have in these
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah,
It's not in the all other. Um,
not in all other, but the
and how do we
others,
want to fit it in?
you
I don't
know,
know.
you know,
I don't know how inflation is definitely directly affects the COLAs. We know that.
Mhm.
And we certainly have heard from department heads that their costs are going up because of inflation. A lot of it is labor. And to what extent are those non-labor accounts affected? Right now, the way the model works, they're right here. And so maybe this number's too low.
so
The
maybe
department,
what I hear you saying is maybe you've got inflation factored into a lot of these categories with the exception of all others.
Yes.
the departments don't tell us their labor costs. We figure that out in other ways. And what we did see is the highway costs that were non-labor were definitely inflating. Inflation was the cause. So when they contract out line striping, that went up. When they do maintenance on their machines, that went up because those are services they have to pay in the marketplace, and those were inflated. But they didn't tell us because we don't go through that process to ask them about their workers. So that's covered in the COLA. But there were expenses coming, and Haley put in a 2% increase for all other sorts of expenses in the general government. That's what she
We can certainly do that.
projected, so that was paper, postage, machine maintenance. We've also had some contracts with Vadar that were initially a certain amount, but we expect those to be going up. All of those contracts for the computer stuff. I
So maybe
actually
we
had
should, yeah.
assessor, I think, went up separately this time.
I mean, maybe this is what we should be doing is using a higher rate here. I just threw that in because of,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, but your points are valid for sure. How do
Or
we,
we have a cost increase line called inflation, and we
Hmm.
just put that in.
well, I mean, that's essentially,
Yeah.
or
This
at
is
least,
really, maybe use something more like 3% for all others. Uh,
and yes, we're not, we're not analyzing the bottom line yet, but you can
no.
see by changing that, you can see now we've got bigger increases on the bottom line.
Right.
And we know that that bottom line is not complete because of debt service, maybe one or two other things, but that's the effect. Yeah,
I
let's
mean,
leave it
things
like
like,
that.
just using examples of like sand and salt. I mean, we know with just the last year that how much that went up. That would be in all others, right? That'd be
Yes.
part of all
Oh yeah.
others.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much
So,
anything that's not here.
yeah. So there's a lot of costs that are probably, that all others is probably a lot of that is driven by inflation, whatever factor we want to put in there.
I think you're right. I
I
think
just
this
did a little
one was
Google,
too low.
I, I just did a little Google search, and it's kind of interesting about like what the recommended you know inflation rate to factor for municipal budgeting. Um, and it says for general operating expenses, and I don't want to like who knows where this came from, but general operating expenses 2.5 to 3%, salaries and wages 2.5 to 3.5%, health insurance 6 to 8%, utilities 3 to 5%, school assessments 3 to 5%, transportation 4 to 6%, construction capital projects 4 to 5%, debt service actual debt schedules. Anyway, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to just think, yeah, like
Yeah.
what are some benchmarks? I don't know if some of those DLS planning tools that you were referring to
Yeah, I haven't really looked too deeply at them, but that would
have,
be
have
something we're doing.
assumptions for these like different categories. Yeah. Um, that would be useful. But like, yeah, like I saw your like I think the health insurance assumptions that are I know you just put in preliminary numbers for now, but
10.
those that felt good for FY 28, but like I'm wondering if 5% in FY if I mean if it's safe to assume um
Mm.
Yeah,
those
I definitely scaled it down when I put it in. I was kind of
yeah
thinking like that,
those
but
feel a little too low. I don't know, like
Yeah,
Some-
these too low?
Yeah, something in the 6 to 8% maybe does feel like a little bit safer, but I don't know what others think.
Yeah.
How about like that?
Yeah, something like that.
And as we wrestle with it, so goes the nation. And so there's
Yeah.
other plans that are being kicked around about how to meet this. And we may end up benefiting from that, or we may not.
What happens if the single payer health bill passes in Massachusetts?
Right,
Changes
It's a
our,
game changer. We can't predict that,
right.
No.
but I think it would be good.
Or things like Ozempic went the price went crashing down. And so
Right.
we might know that, there'll be a new health crisis. The first rounds of maybe 5 years are high and then it backs down again.
yeah.
So AJ, yeah, no question. That's a really hard one to do. So AJ, that information you were just
Yeah,
can you just share that with us? And maybe
absolutely.
those are the assumptions I'll put in here and for our next analysis.
Yep.
Yeah, I think what you have here, George, isn't too far away from what AJ
No,
was just.
yeah.
No, if you put in the new numbers you have for education from your other piece there, you're 5.5 and 2.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna email these to
Yeah.
you right now, George. Yeah.
And I'd like to see the DLS. I'll look at the DLS site because I wonder if they're in Massachusetts, if those numbers are different than what came off the Google site.
Certainly, one thing we have working in our favor with the regional school is Amherst is never going to go more than 3.5%.
Hmm.
So, how does that relate to us? It depends on what our population is going to do, I think. So there you go. So these are the numbers AJ had given us: 2.54. I put in 2.5 into 5.5. So we got
Yeah.
those.
And you bumped up all others to 3. This isn't too far from where AJ was.
The only thing
His
that
references.
I'm to come back to is what, what do you think the merits are of this totally separate from this section up here, just adding a contingency factor, just off on the after you do all of this, very rational sort of budgeting based on these different assumptions for these different categories. After we go through all of that, what about the concept of just adding a certain contingency for just unknown
Yeah, I
expenses?
guess
No relationship to prior year budgets. Is that a
sure, absolutely. So I mean, so unknowns. All right, contingency for unknown or for unexpected, unanticipated.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was
what-
thinking about the dam. I mean, there are things that we will never be able to anticipate, but
Right.
we're a small town and we should have a contingency outlook.
Right.
so 1%, right? That's $83,000. Does that feel like it's too much, or does that feel like the kind of thing? Like, is it fair to say that like every year we have some like unknown, expense that has no historical precedent at all, and it's in the sort of ballpark of around 80 to $90,000. I don't know. Is
I
that
think that's a good percentage, 1%.
Mhm.
1% of the budget.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 1% of the previous year's budget.
Well, yeah.
I just need to format the numbers properly, which is a little tricky because let me open this up. Give me 1 second. I'll fix that. I just want to steal format. There we go. So 1 point. I'm missing a 0 here.
Yeah. A little high.
No, wait, I got a 1 in there that I don't want.
Extra, yeah.
Yeah.
There we
There.
go.
Yeah, that's it.
And then let me just add it to this.
Mhm.
What's this +1 thing here? I don't need that. All right.
I know this is a thinking exercise, not a given exercise, but I would still argue that the SES 5.5 is too high. It's not and then if we have the contingency, it would cover if another sped kid comes in and has to have. And one of the arguments about what's going on with charter is that we end up with more special needs kids in our general public
That's right.
budget.
Susie, I think
But we're a small town. We're not likely to continue to have a kick like that we did this year.
well, we know that there's a child in our school, at least one, that's going to require this higher level of spending.
Mhm.
You're right, though, because it's already in there.
It's already in there, right? It's not
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
happen
Yeah, but I
again.
think AJ's
It's partially.
AJ's number from municipal budgeting, I thought he had 6% for schools, a 6% increase.
You mean
Your reference to municipal forecasting.
that was 3 to 5% for school assessments.
Okay, 3 to 5.
4 to 6% for transportation.
Okay.
So maybe I don't know.
Let's go with 3.
Really? Okay.
3.5.
So,
I'm going with 3 because I have the spreadsheet.
And also, it would be interesting to look back, how often, because there have been some intense, well,
Yeah.
And remember, we can make multiple versions of this. So we
Right.
can use different percentages and we can make lots of these. I'm calling it forecast 1, which is really
Yeah.
not a good description. I'll come up with a new one. Maybe I'm going to call this one baseline. And we can make, various versions of this, but just by
Mhm.
copying the baseline into another template and then making the tweaks to make it something different.
Yeah.
And we can have the different assumptions we feel that we can differentiate each analysis from.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I do think that would be an important thing for us to forecast in the future. How does a kind of a high impact year for the school budget impact, how does it affect our overall budget picture? And so like I'm fine with the baseline number being something either 3 or 3.5%, but like we should at least, like to the extent that we want to be able to have ranges for these things, right? It's one of the reasons we would have a higher, band on a range is because the school has a year like it has the last 2 years, where it's been more like closer to 6%. So yeah, I think that makes sense.
I have a question. What was line 15? It just says budget increases. What is that?
So that's taking the total budget, the total budget percentage increase from down at the very bottom.
Oh, okay.
And it's just so as we change our percentages, it's this number right here. As we change our
Okay.
percentages, this number will change. So without having to keep jumping down here, we can see what
Okay.
it was.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
that contingency just bumped it by 1%,
yes,
right?
yeah, it pushed it up for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the only reason these numbers are lower is because I don't have debt service for everything
Right.
in
Right.
here. Otherwise, everything else is, and you can see that when I come down here, by the way, because I set this up to roll up the expenses for each department. You can see the debt service number, how it goes down, and that's
Right.
not realistic. So that's why these numbers here
Right.
aren't realistic.
Right. And the other question I have is like philosophically or whatever. When you look at the Google search and you look at DLS, when you have a really small town and a budget changes like in SES because of a sped person, so do their percentages work the same for a really small town? I think our town gets whacked by some of the expenses that I know Amherst absorbed a certain number of sped increases, and we don't just like absorb them.
Well, it can go both ways though, right? A sped person can go away too, right?
Yes, but so when Shannon Bernaccia was talking about it, she mentioned some of the kinds of big tuition and transportation ones came in and it was fit into their budget. It's, so what my question is when you have a really small town
Mm.
and you look at some of those projected in the Google search areas of change,
Right.
is that the same for small towns or is those numbers for bigger towns?
That would be something to Google.
Well, I wonder if DLS would have like,
Yeah.
because that's one thing
That's
that always
serious.
happens is,
Yeah.
they give us information, or say Molly Moss is going to take that class. Are they doing the class for small towns or is it just big towns? Or do they have a way of understanding what the factor difference is?
I mean, I have a friendly relationship with Shannon. I could get her feedback on it. Just like, here's this project we're working on, and
Mm.
do you have, yeah, do you have you been through an exercise?
Maybe I'll go to the DLS people and talk to them about this.
Yeah.
Because it's really what Joe Comerford's fighting for is idea of rural equity, because we're not the same. And you need to understand when you make your aid formulas and stuff like that, there's a differential that has to be accounted for. And I don't know how it shows up.
All right. Well, this is like an awesome.
So everybody thinks this model works, right?
Yep.
This
Yeah.
model,
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
I totally do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And,
Okay, good.
and
Yes.
to actually take it from this step to it being a functioning, usable document we're very close. I think we just need to get some numbers from Ryan. And then I think we
Mhm.
as a committee need to just nail down some of these like baseline assumptions. And then I think it's ready to go. So I'm gonna email Ryan tomorrow to ask him that,
And send him this.
yes, I will.
Mhm.
Or I don't know, what do you think, George?
I don't think we should send it to him yet.
I will explain the exercise though that we're going
Yeah.
through.
The reason I would send it to Ryan and just say, here's an exercise we're working on, is when I went looking for information about the different towns, how they were meeting this particular year, there was amazing differences in the way towns write up their budget proposals.
Yes.
And he is the treasurer for a bunch of different places, so he may know. And sometimes the differential is because they are regional and not just a solo elementary school like we are. So what I found interesting is the way people handled their cash reserves, how they handled their stabilization funds and stuff like that. He may be aware in a bigger picture than some of us.
Well, that's a separate conversation, I think. I don't know. I'm not comfortable
I think it's
passing this
totally your
around.
call, George. Like I can share it with him, or I can just explain, briefly summarize the exercise that we're going through and tell him.
At this point, I think I would be comfortable with you breaking this out and sending him this,
Okay, yeah,
right? The debt
Yeah,
service, and
sure.
explaining him in concept what we're doing and see if he does have that experience or that exposure that Susie was referencing.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, he might just add noise. Nothing against Ryan,
Right. I got you. Yeah.
but he might not be able to help us.
Mhm.
And I want to ask him to do more. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm comfortable with everybody else is comfortable. If everybody thinks Susie's right, I'm fine with it. I think at this point, I think it's too soon to start sending this out beyond our committee.
I think it's a good compromise sending him this section, the loan,
Yep,
the debt
I
section,
agree.
and say, and giving him the context of what this exercise is and how we want to make this ultimately a useful planning tool. We feel like we need to actually build in the debt schedule so that we're accounting for, debt service payments that need to be made in each of these years. But we need that information from them.
For two purposes, one for long range planning and two for knowing that we have the fire truck and we're gonna have to
Yeah.
manage the fire truck. And then maybe in those statements you just said, oh, and by the way, have you any experience with long-range planning with
Yes.
municipal governments?
Yep. Yep, yep.
Another set of eyes that we might consider at some phase is Becky.
Yep.
Because Becky has used what George developed over in Sunderland to help plan their budget.
She's doing long-range planning? You know that for
So
sure?
no,
You're talking
I
about
think she
CapEx,
might
right?
have a view of how that works. So
Hmm.
at some point she might be able to think about, especially to see something we haven't seen, we haven't figured out yet.
I think Becky, at the end of the day, is going to be interested in this and how
Yeah.
this can be used in
I think
Sunderland.
she would, and I think she
Yep.
could look at it and see stuff that we might not understand how these pieces work.
Yeah, no, her perspective is she's got a lot of experience.
Yeah. You know, George, not to like get too carried away, but like I think this is like you know, if you were ever interested, like after using this for a while, I think there's like this is a tool that I think a lot of municipalities would benefit from, and you know, I could see you developing a version of this that you know you could market.
Copy.
I'm retired.
Right?
No, but
Whether you
no,
want
do
to do
it.
that or not, I think people, I think this would be quite useful for a lot of small.
Yeah.
I've heard that about the OPEB schedule
No,
too.
do it.
I don't know.
Do it for the town and we can charge for it.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
there's
a
a revenue
moneymaker.
George,
My
you're the man.
my commission is 20%.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Mm.
All
Well,
right,
I'm
so-
glad you like it. I am.
It's a lot of work, George, you put
Yeah.
in here.
Yes.
It's really good work. Really good
Thank you.
stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you all think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
even like there's some usability things that like the way we can collapse like budget lines into these broad categories, but then sometimes you want to see the line, you know, like all those little decisions you made, I thought were really thoughtful. So
Yeah.
Remember, this is what I used to do for a living. So,
Yeah.
You're not that retired, huh?
you know, it's the way I keep the brain turning.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it might turn other ways.
That's right.
all right, we're about to hit 9 o'clock, so we should.
I know, it's past my bedtime.
Does anybody have anything urgent they need to share? Should we
Nope.
wrap up this meeting? Okay, when are we meeting next? We should figure that out, right?
Yes, we should.
With our new people.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
So,
But does
AJ,
that-
have you heard any about that?
So no, I sent Nettie an email this morning asking for an update. I haven't heard back yet, so I'll let you know when. But wait, does this mean this is our last meeting with April and Jim?
well, Jim
Unless-
will be in he's
Yeah.
still there.
I mean, we'll see.
Well, unless
Yeah.
we meet in 2 weeks on the 30th.
Yeah,
Yeah, the thing about when we meet is
Yes, April.
dovetailing with the select board. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe on the 30th, we'll know who our new people are and the old people get to skip that meeting.
Oh,
Eventually, we need to sign roles and
this has been
That's
this.
liaisons.
I have to say, this committee is just phenomenal. I think if we could package this, we could sell it perhaps.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'd second that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's
This is
about our
brilliant.
entire committee. That's a great idea.
What we did this year was amazing.
Mhm.
The adding the communications on a regular basis and
Mm,
that annual
Yep.
report that we wrote and the writing style of the two new members and
mhm.
you know, Susie, the work you put in,
Oh God, and
it's
Oh.
incredible.
yes,
I'm honored to be on this committee. I'm proud to say I'm on this committee. I
Yeah.
just wish times were easier. I mean, I don't even need easier. I just don't need the chaos that we're living in right now.
Right.
but also over the last few years, I really, AJ, you could herd anything. You could herd snails. I mean, just watching. It's been yeah.
AJ, you definitely added some good innovations. You really did. Training the two new people the way you did got them up
Yep.
to speed much
well,
quicker.
we did it as a committee. I think
Well, but the
honestly say-
decision to do it,
Yeah,
AJ,
yeah,
was
yeah.
yours.
Yes.
I think that's what I've been most impressed by the last year in particular is that this is not a group that's just satisfied with like let's you know we you know let's do things the same way we did last year. Like there's been an interest in like creating new helpful processes and improving the way we do our work. And yeah, that's rewarding to be a part of that. Yeah.
So can we plan our meeting on for the
Yeah.
30th just to be in sync with the select board, and we'd have enough pieces to move forward with our liaisons and all that shit?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Okay.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
So
April, you should go.
I should go. I should
Yeah,
go to the meeting,
June 30th. You
June
should go.
30th.
welcome.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
absolutely.
You're
Yeah, you're
welcome.
still on.
It'll be your call.
You
Yeah.
come if you want. You're
No,
the
I
public.
would be, I can be whatever I want.
Yeah, come with a clown hat.
I'm wearing one. Well, all right. See you guys on the 30th.
6:30 on the 30th.
Yeah.
I gotta go to bed. I'm
All
so
right.
tired.
Make
You
a
didn't get
motion
your
to
nap today,
adjourn.
huh?
I did not get a nap.
Second,
Third,
Arvanitis, aye.
Gashu, aye.
Mosherai.
and Steinai.
and Walton, I.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Adios.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.